and welcome to another installment of TED Excellence, the show in which I take a look at what real professionals have to say about the world and decide whether I believe them. And I come to you live from my Corona bunker on the moon with Dogcat Fox, a Pepperjack, and all of you. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing well today on this beautiful Thursday. Well, might be beautiful where you are. Maybe it's dark and dingy like where I am. But either way, welcome. So what do I have in store for you today? Well, or for myself as well, I suppose. I was going to do, for those of you that did not listen to Lords of the Night last night, a show I do with Satsu 2 Cents 6 nights a week at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on a rotating schedule. I had found a TEDx that was titled Radical Vulnerability. Now, those of you who are veterans to my channel may remember that at one point or another, I outlined my simple recipe for creating your own TEDx talk. It's basically you have to come up with your buzz phrase title first and then reverse engineer it. And the way to do that is you first come up with a notion, an adjective, a word, an abstract that denotes something good, something positive in life. So, for example, the one that I did in my fake TEDx talk was tranquility. Tranquility. That's a nice term, right? Means something nice, means something positive. Then you have to decide, are you going to make a TEDx that is either for or against this thing, whatever this concept you've decided upon is. If it's going to be for the thing, you put the word radical in front of it. If it's going to be against the thing, you put the word toxic in front of it, or some synonym thereof. And so my fake TEDx talk was malicious tranquility. What is malicious tranquility? I don't know, but I reverse engineered it into a TEDx talk. You can find that on my channel. I think I called it something like a red circle carpet talk or something. Anyway, that's all preamble to say that's not the one we're doing today. Because even though classically I do not listen to or find out much about the TEDx talks before I present them on a live stream, in the course of getting that video ready for broadcast, I always go in and I try to tweak the audio and that kind of thing. It was unavoidable that I listened to a little bit of the audio. And in the course of that, I find out that the TEDx talk really isn't about anything societal or self-help per se, but it's really about a guy who lost his father in an avalanche. And I don't really feel like trying to pick apart someone's grieving process over their dead relative, if you can believe it. So that all being as preamble, what did I decide upon today? Well, we have an actual professor of social justice who is apparently going to teach us about how to perceive race beyond merit and malice. Again, I don't know what that means. And I didn't listen to this one, so, or at least not in a way that I would have any idea what he's going to say. So, that was a wonderful introduction. Who's joining me on this today? Dr. Keeve, hello. Corey Suzuki, hello. Zan Wild, hello. Samnamnyal Nation, hello. Zalbla, hello. Who else is here? Swirl Blue, hello. Sean Uli, hello. Asian Hippie, hello. Fun Time Bats, hello. Let's see. The Gay Rascal, hello. And welcome, Gay Rascal, from the recommendation from Benjamin Boyce. Appreciate the fact that you're taking a look at all my playlist. Who else is here? Birgit, hello. Zeke Weiss, hello. Jonathan Peterson, hello. Lexi Mads, hello. We can finally begin. Megan Ring, hello. Johnny Stoffel, hello. Lissa Leo, hello. And who else? Anybody else? Green Death, hello. The Original Shroom, hello. Mike Savage, Blarg. Buddy C, Buddy, hello. Brittany Holland, hello. You're Ridiculous Lunatic, hello. This is Kyle, thank you so much. Hello, chat people and scribbles. Hello, Kyle. Robert Pincus, hello. And I think that's everyone. If I missed anyone, I do apologize. But we need to move on to the wonderful world of TEDx Akron. So what's going on in old Ohio? Per usual, I'll start off with a few seconds for sound test. You guys tell me if you can hear this, and then we will begin.
So sometimes people say that we need to talk about race more.
Sometimes people say we need to talk about race more. Haven't we been talking about race enough? Now, just as a note, I believe this talk is at least 2 years old, something like that. I think it was posted in 2018, but these things never really go bad. Let's see. Sounds great, says Buddy C. Buddy. Megan Ring says, sounds good. The Gay Rascal says, heard that. All right. But Green Death brings up the most poignant question. Why do we need to talk about race at all? Well, presumably, we're going to be told by our professor of social justice.
I think we talk about race a lot.
You think?
But mostly with people that we agree with.
Race as a subject of quote-unquote conversation usually only comes up when someone is either directly or sort of in the abstract accusing other people of being racist, usually, or themselves in some way, shape, or form, if they're self-interrogating their motives or whatever. It usually doesn't happen amongst people I agree with, because the people I agree with generally, actually, yeah, on that subject, we don't talk about it because it's irrelevant. It doesn't come up because it's irrelevant. The only time it ever comes up is because somebody else is trying to make it relevant again. Anyway.
So, the reason that we're all so racially disconnected is a failure of the imagination. I'm going to challenge you to broaden your imagination and then to do something about it.
The reason we're also racially disconnected. Okay, well, what does it mean to be racially connected? And how is that requiring imagination? Because I can imagine quite a bit.
The key underlying fact that underlies all of our racial misunderstandings is the persistence of racial inequality in America.
Okay. My ears are open, as well as my mind. Do tell.
This is a chart that shows infant survival rates.
Okay, for those of you listening at home, he apparently has a slide up on the screen. We can't currently see it. I hope they draw back a little bit so we can see what the heck he's talking about. But infant survival rates, I think he said, or infant mortality.
The African-American the black infant mortality rate in Ohio is among the worst in the country, 49th out of 50 states.
Caused by what?
I'm sorry, that's the wrong chart. This is about household wealth.
Oh, I see what he's doing. I thought he was pulling some kind of joke there for a second. I see what's going to happen. So just so I get this, and I know where this is going, we're in the God of the Gaps theory of statistical analysis. There is a disparity between these two numbers, therefore racism. Got it.
Or maybe it's about job offers if your name is Jamal as opposed to Kevin.
Yeah.
Actually, it could be a lot of things. I think you probably get the point by now.
Yeah, you have a one-size-fits-all bar chart, or graph, without any references, without any numbers, and you just keep switching the titles and telling us that it's all the same. Actually, kind of a nice metaphor for what you're trying to do there.
The numbers don't really matter.
Okay, all right. So, it is an article of faith, is it? Got it.
We all know, we all understand as a foundational fact that racial inequality persists along a number of vectors. And I'm guessing that all that information might have made some of you a little bit uncomfortable.
What's making me uncomfortable is your assumptions of reality and just injecting causes without any evidence. Yes, there are racial disparities. You know why? Because the population density or population density, the population demographics of this country vary wildly between racial demographics, just like every other country on the planet. And as a consequence of this, if you start assessing the reality of people's daily lives and then putting them up against demographic numbers, there are going to be differences. And anybody coming out and saying there's a one-size-fits-all answer for all the problems that ail you, you know what that's called? Snake oil. Same thing if you say there's a one cause for all problems, period. Just Mm.
Because the problem with all of that inequality is that we only have two narratives to explain all that inequality to us, right? And our problem is this is where the lack of imagination comes in.
No, the lack of imagination is saying that there's one cause. Okay. You're talking about a lack of imagination. In my imagination, there is usually a myriad of factors that you have to account for when you're trying to analyze a disparity in outcomes for racial demographics. Because if you're going to say a one-size-fits-all answer goes for that, that is a lack of imagination. But apparently, we're going to have two narratives, okay? Well, maybe he's going to disprove the whole one-size-fits-all thing. Maybe that's where we're going, okay? Maybe that's where we're going. Thank you, Drew W. Quote, we all know, unquote, fallacy. Yes, we all know it. Well, if we all know it, then what are we doing here? Does anybody need to take your class, Professor? If everybody already knows it? Anyway. All right. So fingers crossed, he's actually leading up to disproving the notion that you can just summarize everything into a couple of buckets. My fingers are crossed. Probably won't do much.
We're human beings. We seek meaning. We need to sort of figure out a story that explains all that inequality.
Yes.
And we only have these two stories, and they're really old and they're really tired.
What do you mean we? I don't even know what stories you're talking about. I mean, I guess I could surmise the two stories based on the title, but oh wait, I'm sorry. I already know all this stuff. He doesn't need to explain it to me. I already know what he's going to say.
The first narrative is the narrative of Malice, or the narrative of racism.
Yes.
And our paradigmatic example of this is Bull Connor, and he is attacking peaceful protesters, right, with fire hoses and dogs.
Okay, I guess that's one way of putting it. Yes. Okay, so credit where credit is due. Some people try to explain vast disparities in racial outcomes or whatever with the single answer of racism. Okay, that is a flawed way of thinking. Yes, that is a lack of imagination. Correct. Okay, I'm with you so far. Thank you, the gay rascal, for the dog cat fox. We're number one. We're number one.
And the problem with this narrative is that most white people don't think of themselves as Bull Connor. They think that this kind of racism is long since past, and for the most part, they're right.
What? I'm genuinely shocked. Genuinely shocked. Mike R. brings up a good point. I've been so caught up in listening to our speaker, I have neglected the bingo card. By the way, guys, bingo card today is bingo card C. C is in cat. You can find the links to the bingo cards in the description below. Zan Wild. But Mike R. rightly points out mind reading, because if we already know this stuff, we know this already. We know this to be true. Mind reading. So circling free space and mind reading. Let's go through the other ones real quick. Marginalize, marginalization. He hasn't said the words yet. Collectivize his own demographic. He hasn't talked about himself. Not really. Leaves out vital context. The numbers don't matter. Well, circle leaves out vital context. Feminism, no. Microaggressions, unconscious bias, not yet. Anecdote that probably never happened. He hasn't given us any, except for, I guess, Bull Connor, but that really happened. Contradicts own point or argument. I don't know what his argument is yet. Diversity and inclusion, not yet. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase, not yet. Plays victim, no. Word salad, no. Benevolent condescension. We'll probably get there, maybe, but I'm going to leave it blank for the moment. A list. Yeah, he gave us a list of all the different inequities that he wanted to talk about, or at least group together. So with that graph chart thing. So we have a list. Patriarchy, no. Wage gap, no. Systemic institutional, I don't think he's put in that into it yet. I'm also thinking about adding structural to that square, since that's been a very popular word lately. Privilege, not yet. Childhood or family anecdote, again, he hasn't talked about himself. Self-vilification or wretchedness, no. Equity, no. Weightless example, not yet. I mean, I've leaned on those charts enough already. I'll wait and see if he says something else. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason, not yet. And white supremacy, hasn't said it. So we so far have circled, leaves out vital context, mind reading, free space, and a list. Moving on.
The alternative narrative is the narrative of merit.
Mm-hmm.
And here the idea is that if we have fair competition on an even playing field,
Mm-hmm.
that'll produce winners and losers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what produces racial inequality.
Well, again, that is not how I look at these things, because I have an idea that it's not down to one or even two supposed factors of those outcomes. There are probably a lot of things you have to control for. So again, I'm hoping our professor is about to tell us that things are far more complex than that. That would be actually a nice change.
Well, there's a clear inference there of Black inferiority.
There's a clear inference of what? Okay.
And the problem here is that there are plenty of smart, talented Black people working really hard, and they're not seeing the same returns. Those Black people don't see themselves as lacking merit, and they're right too.
Okay, you're injecting a whole bunch of thoughts into this that I didn't have, but I guess you have. So, yeah.
So what's important about this is I'm not going to sort of talk about which of these narratives is more accurate factually.
What? Okay, the numbers don't matter. I'm not going to talk about which one of these narratives is more factual. Probably because neither one is entirely factual in explaining these disparities. Okay, I mean, if that is his rationale, I can't disagree with him.
Right. The way that these narratives function, though, is crucially important. Because both of these narratives operate as simultaneously an accusation and a self-serving rationalization.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Depending on which side you're coming from. If you count yourself as a victim of the system, then your circumstances are a result of malice of forces beyond your control, right? And if you are, I don't know, on the other end of the spectrum, I suppose, you can say that the result is merit, as in it's just about personal choice and so on and so forth, and you're divesting yourself of any responsibility. Even though as an individual you don't have any responsibility, but to the whole system or anything. But I guess you could see that, yes, all right.
Whenever there's persistent racial inequality as a topic, white people feel accused of being racist, Black people feel accused of being inferior. Okay, well, on the one hand, it's not a matter of feel. White people are accused of being racist. There's no ambiguity there. Okay. There really isn't. Now, Black people being accused of being inferior, well, it really depends on how you look at it. Because on the one hand, you have actual racists who believe Black people are inferior. And then you have the liberal progressives who basically say Black people need help because they can't make it on their own, effectively saying the same thing, but in a benevolent context. So, yeah, these things do happen, but it's not a matter of feeling. It's a matter of fact. Right. And these narratives, they're so powerful, they're so ubiquitous, that they don't even have to be named. If racial inequality is the topic, we all feel defensive, and we all feel accused.
Well, because you're grouping people by a common denominator. I mean, you just did it in your graphs and everything. All white people are up, all Black people are down. If you are white, then you're in the majority, regardless of your personal circumstances, and you are the enemy of the Black demographic. That was your accusation. You know, your silly little charts at the front with no numbers. So again, I'm not quite sure where he's going. Is he going to be, demystifying the notion that it's that simple, or I don't know where he's going. Thank you, Dark Resurrect. How much is the media to blame for those things? Those feelings, sorry. Yeah, the media, pop culture, the politicians these days trying to virtue signal all over the place. Thank you, Mikala Driving 8-Man, for the, I'm not quite sure that is blank-faced emoji, or maybe he's meditating, I suppose.
Now, I'm going to talk about some alternative stories, right, that we need in order to get away from this defensiveness.
Alternative stories to get away from this defensiveness. Okay, so you start out the whole thing talking about the obvious, we all know, there's no reason to discuss it, racial disparities where white people are up here and black people are down here, but we're going to get away from defensiveness? Okay.
And this, I'm going to move back to that slide. I'm going to talk about telephones.
Yay.
Here's the thing about telephones. They're what economists call a network good. Most goods, the more of them there are, the cheaper they are, right? Diamonds are valuable and dirt is cheap.
Uh-huh.
But a telephone, the value of one telephone is actually not very much.
Uh-huh.
The only value of a telephone is to be able to talk to another telephone.
Well, in the olden days, I suppose that's true. Although, quote unquote, telephones today are basically just an app on a supercomputer in your pocket. But okay, let's go back to the analog days. Sure.
Right. And so once you have two telephones, now it's valuable, but it's not that valuable. Right. The reason telephones are so valuable now is because you can talk to billions of people with one phone.
I mean, I guess if we're expanding the definition of what a phone is, or the function of a telephone in the classical sense, well, yes, conceivably, with one telephone, you could talk to billions of people if you called billions of telephone numbers. If you're talking about social media through a device that is now called a phone, but really is a supercomputer. Yeah, okay.
Well, now here's the quality of a phone that makes it valuable. It's got to have the ability to technologically connect to the network. Right. And if you were to invent tomorrow the best, most meritorious communication device ever, better than the telephone, and nobody else had one, it would be worthless.
If I could develop the thing better than the telephone, it would be worthless. I'm running down to the patent office. I'm trying to get the analogy here. Thank you, Zan Wild. Is he talking monetary or intrinsic value because they're not the same? I don't know what he's talking about yet. Okay, let's say I develop something more interconnective, more meritorious than the telephone, but I've got the only one.
Right. It's only valuable if you convince everybody else to get one.
Yeah, that's called marketing and salesmanship.
Let me give you another example. This is Microsoft Windows.
Well, it's the Microsoft Windows logo. If it was Microsoft Windows, we'd be seeing a blue screen of death right now.
Did you know that Microsoft Windows still controls 85% of the world's laptop and desktop computers? 85%.
Yeah.
Raise your hand if you think that that's because Microsoft Windows is the most meritorious, best operating system ever invented.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Crushing competition, being a monopoly. Yeah, you're right. Okay. Where are we going with this now?
How does that work?
Capitalism, marketing, corporate warfare, Cyberpunk 2077.
Right. Microsoft Windows is a network good. Microsoft Windows works People buy Microsoft Windows because everybody else has Microsoft Windows. If you're an employer, you have Microsoft Windows so that your employees, they'll come in, they'll already know how to operate it. If you're developing computer applications, you can develop your applications for Windows because everybody has Windows.
Yes, it's called making your product ubiquitous. Yeah, it happens, you know? Like every Kleenex is a tissue, but not every tissue is a Kleenex. But if I say Kleenex, everybody knows what I'm talking about. Yeah. That's successful marketing. That's successful branding. And at one time or another, Windows did more than anybody else is offering. So yeah, they gained the market share and they've held on to it. Might not be a perfect product, certainly, but okay. Thank you, Dark Resurrect. Meritorious? No. Most easily accessible and most compatible with business workings? Yes. Simple business tool. Yeah. Okay, I'm waiting to see where he's going with this.
Well, what if whiteness is like Windows?
Let's get rid of the defensiveness here, guys. Just so you know, we're going to move past defensiveness, and we're just going to call whiteness a giant juggernaut of a monopoly over everything that is inherently flawed. It's inherently flawed compared to everything else. There's better products out there, you know, but they just happen to be the biggest. Those white people. But we're going to get past defensiveness. We're going to get past accusation. Oh, God.
What if whiteness succeeds because it's the default network standard and everybody has to learn to connect to it?
Define whiteness. Define it. You know, give me the 3-sentence elevator pitch definition of whiteness. You tell me, what defines whiteness? Okay. Because if it's not just having white skin, right, then you've got some explaining to do, Professor.
Let me give you another example of a place where people succeed, right, without necessarily having superior merit.
Politics. Any aspect of life where someone just lucks out or ends up being the default choice or being the safe choice, like maybe certain presidents that are in office right now. Thank you, Jaeger Pony. So I should pull a dolazol and adopt blackness then? I don't know. Unless he defines the term for the sake of this presentation, I don't know what he's talking about. And I've talked about this on Lords of the Night and elsewise before. These days, whenever terms are brought up and thrown out there without attribution, without explanation, even if it's a term I think I know the actual definition of, I now have to be very skeptical as to whether or not it's being thrown out there with some revised definition I'm just not aware of. So when he said, but in this case, it's a buzzword. So when he says whiteness, what does he mean? Like, I know what Windows is. You know, that's a thing that's fairly comprehensible. It's been around a while. You know what it is. It's an operating system for a computer. It does certain things, blah, blah, blah. What is whiteness? Is he going to tell us? Probably not.
This is Coke.
That's Coca-Cola, actually. Coke is Tony Montana territory.
Coke still controls 40% of the world soft drink market.
Yes.
Is that because in 1886 in Atlanta, they invented the best, most meritorious drink ever invented?
Let me ask you something, Professor. If the product is satisfying, but the efforts on the front of marketing, advertising, so on and so forth, is that a factor of merit? Does the company that is able to maintain that level of market share for that long, is there no merit involved in the effort in making that happen? I mean, say what you will about the end product of Windows. You have to at least begrudgingly, pragmatically, give some kind of credit to Microsoft for being as successful for as long as they have been. You know, I mean, setting and this is setting aside ethical or moral considerations, because we are talking about big business and capitalism. There's no merit involved in Coca-Cola having that market share as a company, as a brand. Okay, you can argue over the product, but there is merit involved in the state of that product being where it is. Now, if you're going to talk about whiteness as a product, you're going to have to describe it, because we're not talking about a product. You're making an accusation of a racial demographic.
Right. The reason is that Coke is it. Coke is the real thing. You drink it and you want to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony.
Yeah, and what were all those things? Oh yeah, they were slogans and advertisements thought up by people who put work into that stuff. Did you watch Mad Men? You can say a lot of things about the characters in Mad Men, but did they have merit to achieve what they had? Yeah. There was merit involved. There was people involved. It's not as simple as you're saying. You start off by saying, oh, there's only two narratives. We got to go through that. We got to break through that notion. And now you're whittling down giant companies and products and decades worth of work and effort on the part of people putting time and effort into those products and just waving it away. Why am I getting alerts of news? Is there a way to turn off the automatic news alerts on Chrome? I hate those things. Anyway.
Right. That's how brands work, right? Marketing people invent these logos, and you see these logos and you feel something.
Wait, they invent something? Is there no merit involved in invention, in creativity, in imagination?
Well, maybe whiteness is a brand.
Maybe? No. You better not stick to maybe, because you've used Windows and Coca-Cola in relation to whiteness. If whiteness is not a brand, then I'm circling weightless example on the card, because you've just given us two that don't actually relate to your argument. Thank you, Drew W. Amazingly socialist denounce competition. Okay. Well, we'll see where he goes, but all right. Maybe whiteness is a brand?
Maybe you see whiteness and you feel wholesomeness and competence and America.
Okay, so what do you mean by seeing whiteness? Just seeing a white person? You think wholesomeness, America? Okay, well, so if I hold up a picture of Ted Bundy, you're going to feel wholesome and a sense of Americana in your heart? Is that all it takes?
Well, now,
okay, he always says under his breath. I'm going to back up a little bit. He's done this throughout the entire talk. He'll say something, and then under his breath, he'll say, right? And I know it is one of those sort of reflexive pause breaks kind of things. But whenever I see someone on a stage who is effectively asking their audience for affirmation of what they've just said, it makes me very suspicious about whether or not they themselves believe what they are saying. You know?
America. Right. Well, now, here's the problem with these examples, right? There are actually brand managers who are sort of designing, right, intentionally how to make sure that the brand has a certain value.
Yeah.
And there's no Bill Gates of whiteness. There's no whiteness council that's managing the image of whiteness.
Right. So your examples are bad. Then why did you bring them up? I'm hovering over circling weightless examples.
So we need to think about examples that don't have to do with business, and we're going to go to the natural world, and I'm going to talk about ants.
Circling weightless example, he has wasted all of our time by bringing up examples that don't actually pertain to his argument. Thanks so much, Professor. I'm sure your students are getting their money's worth at whatever college it is you teach at.
Ants do this really interesting, complicated thing. They find the shortest distance from the food to the nest. You've seen this, right? And ants don't do that because they're smart, right? Ants do this following really simple rules. Actually, all they have to do is follow 3 simple rules.
3 simple rules for dating my daughter? Was that it? Was it 3 simple rules? Either way, you know why that is also, Professor? Ants have itsy bitsy little brains.
Right. They leave a trail of pheromone behind them.
Were you motioning that you were farting or something there?
And they follow the strongest pheromone scent. Wait, that's only two. The third rule is actually not something that the ants even do. The third rule has to do with the pheromone itself. It decays over time.
So whiteness is the stench of white people moving through the world?
So what does that mean? If two ants leave the nest at the same time, and one of them takes a minute to get to the food, and the other takes 30 seconds, a minute later, right, the scent at the beginning of that first ant's trail is a minute old.
Uh-huh.
The second ant is back.
Uh-huh.
And not only is their trail only 30 seconds old, but there's a second pheromone trail on top of it. It's doubled over.
Professor, you're drifting again. You're drifting very far afield. So again, is whiteness a pheromone?
Right, all the ants follow the shortest trail.
Uh-huh. So yes, the path of least resistance. Yes, okay. And then?
Now, that's not because ants are smart. That's not because ants have figured this out. There's no genius ant, right?
So white people are just brainless, instinctual creatures that operate on scent? Is that it?
And invented the system, right? They're just following simple rules. Well, what if you're an ant that can't smell that scent?
You die. You would have effectively a non-functioning birth defect, or actually, well, you know what I mean. Okay.
What if you're an ant from a different nest that senses a different pheromone?
Well, you attack it because it is foreign. Are we going to get into some kind of xenophobia here thing? Are you going to compare ants of different nests as people of different races? Is that it?
And what this system looks like to you is a bunch of people getting food, and they're following some invisible scent that you can't follow.
Well, you wouldn't know that if you're an ant that can't sense the pheromone because... What? Can this ant detect pheromones or not? Because you say, what if an ant can't do that? And then you say, they sense a pheromone from a different nest. What? Stop asking right. I don't know. You're the professor. Why are you asking me?
And the other ants think, the first ants think, I don't know why this person doesn't just follow the pheromone. Well, maybe being black is like being an ant from a different nest that doesn't smell the same pheromone.
So, by your own examples, the disparities in racial outcomes and the charts that you showed where the numbers don't matter, it's that black people are inherently flawed and they can't follow the trail to achieve the same levels as white people. Is that it? They can't speak the quote-unquote same language or understand the way the world works because they're black? Because of their skin color, they come from a different ant colony? Is that really where you want to go, Professor? Thank you, Chicago Mike. At work right now. We'll have to watch later. Also, hi, Scribe. Hi, Mike. I'm getting ready to circle benevolent condescension. Thank you, John Miller. Wait a sec. Did he just say that being black is a hive mind? Very reductive, isn't he? He's saying a lot of things here. I'm not quite sure if he's aware of what he is saying, but let's give him a minute or two here.
Fish. We're going to talk about fish.
Okay, that was it. Well, okay. I'm circling benevolent condescension because, what if black people are just, somehow inherently handicapped? What were you saying before about saying that black people were inherently flawed or whatever, or disadvantaged? What is going on?
You ever seen a bait ball of fish, like hundreds of thousands of fish, and they're all moving in this really coordinated, tightly packed way, and they're not bumping into each other, and you think, how did they do that? Birds do this too.
They are bumping into each other. It's just they move so fast you can't really see it. It's not quite. You ever see an ant walk? There's a great little documentary by Errol Morris from many, many years ago, back in the 90s, called Fast, Cheap, and Out of Control. And it is effectively a braided essay as a documentary. It takes three completely disparate individuals doing three completely disparate things. And over the course of the film, Errol Morris finds a way to entwine them all together into like this, you know, I can't describe it so much. You just have to watch it. But there is one part in there that I remember very specifically. One of the people involved is a roboticist, let's say. And he was trying to come up with a way to have robots have motion. And, you know, he'd seen all these robots of people trying to make these very precise moving legs and appendages and everything to move across the world. And he had the realization one day, you know, it's one of those sort of eureka moments. He's like, he actually looked at insects. He looked at how insects actually move. And when you actually watch insects move, they're not very coordinated. They're bumbling and stumbling all over the place. So he just decided, let's just make robots that just bumble and stumble to get from point A to point B and see how successful they are in doing so. Because it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to be successful. Okay. So what you see as something fluid or whatever else isn't really as fluid as you think. I'm just saying that because our professor here is operating off of misapprehensions or generalizations. If we didn't already need evidence of that, just saying. Thank you. This is Kyle again, at work right now, currently watching. What is this guy talking about? Did he do a bunch of drugs before this talk? I have no idea. He is a professor of social justice and something else at some college somewhere. That's as much as I know about him. Beyond that, he really thinks he knows what he's talking about. But so far, he's not convincing me. Thank you, Mr. Tickle Truck, for the happy dancing dog cat fox. Oh, dog cat fox. Okay, fish are swarming. Or fish are, what are they called? Squirming, or whatever it's called. Okay, yes, fish.
They have these things called murmurations of starlings, tens of thousands of birds, right? And they're if you've ever seen a video, they're flying in these really coherent, discrete movements, right? They're shapes, and the boundaries of them are distinct.
Yes. Okay, we moved from fish to birds. And I can't help but also mentioning, if you ever want to see a very brief and sparse story, that is one of my favorite pieces of literature ever. You have to find the story called The Signature of God by Judson Mitchum. It's about 2.5, 3 pages long or something. It's about as minimalist as you can get. And birds play a significant role in that story. And I always think about that story whenever I see one of those big swarms of birds moving around in the sky.
Right. And they're not running into each other. There is no air traffic controller of birds directing them how to go. And there's no lead, you know, the lead fish that's sending out communication. Okay, everybody to the left. Right. Actually, the computer scientists figured out when they were trying to animate hundreds of Huns in the snowy background in Mulan, right? They figured out that all you need is a few simple rules.
Now, everything's so simple. Simple rules. 3 simple rules here, 2 simple narratives there. It's also simple.
If you try to stay close to the other starlings, and you try to maintain about an equal distance between 6 and 8 other starlings, if you do that, you will fly around in a very coordinated group.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't follow those rules, you will mess things up for everybody.
Okay, so white people have rules. That makes them successful, whereas black people are unable to follow these rules, and that makes them less successful? Is that what you're saying? Because that's what it sounds like you're saying. So are you going to connect your examples to whiteness now? Because you spent time telling us about Windows and Coca-Cola, then said they're bad examples. Then you did fish and birds. And so
you can produce patterns of inequality without either superior merit or racist malice?
How?
There are more narratives available than just those two.
Such as?
There are a whole lot of narratives.
Such as?
Maybe it's the case
Maybe it's the case. Okay.
that you're simply following the network standard. Maybe it's the case that you have a good brand image. Maybe you're just following simple rules like hiring people who make you socially comfortable.
That's a rule, is it? Oh, okay. Yeah, because, you know, when I want to hire somebody into my company, I go for people that make me feel uncomfortable. Uh-huh.
Or leaving all your money to your children.
Should I not leave all my money to my children? What should I be doing with all of my money, Professor? What should I be doing with my money, Professor? You tell me. You tell me what is the moral good I should be doing with my money.
Innocent rules, nonetheless, they produce patterns of inequality that look as coordinated as a conspiracy or a choir.
Yes, if you look for patterns in tree bark that give you secret insight into the universe, you'll probably find them. But let me ask you something, Professor. Even though you didn't say it explicitly, but by implication throughout this entire talk, I can't help but keep being stuck on this one thing. Do non-white people not leave their money to their children? I mean, if it's a rule, if it's this secret rule that is governing quote unquote whiteness, the thing you have yet to define but keep aligning with groupthink, is it the case that it is a rule that non-white people do not leave their money to their children upon their death? I mean, I would have to assume that is the case if it is a rule on the one side and an act of rebellion on the other side, correct? Did you think that far, Professor?
So what do we do about that?
I have no idea. What do we do? How do we solve this problem?
Well, here's the thing.
Uh-huh.
That racial inequality
Yeah.
is still an accusation.
Yes. Yes. If you're not going to actually look at the possible causal factors outside of your assumption of fact, that we already know what's going on, that the numbers do not matter, that maybe whiteness is a brand, and on and on. Yes, Professor. Yes, it is an accusation. An accusation without evidence.
Because it is in fact true that Ohio is 49th out of 50 states.
49th out of 50 states of what? Oh, are we back to the infant mortality thing again?
In Black infant mortality.
Okay, what is causing that? Is racism causing that, doctor? Why am I saying doctor? Professor, is it racism that's causing that? Is it white people that are killing all the Black children? What are you trying to say? You're throwing out concepts and accusations into the ether. Because what you just did is an accusation, Professor. Do you have any evidence to back this up?
Higher than Alabama, higher than Washington, D.C.
And are you about to tell us that the negative space you are leaving in just saying that without saying anything else isn't racism? Isn't whiteness or something? What are you trying to say? Tell me what is killing all the Black babies in Ohio, Professor.
And I've just told you, I've just asked you to imagine
Yeah.
that the cause of all that inequality is not white racism,
Uh-huh.
and it's not bad black behavior.
Really? It's not white racism and it's not bad black behavior. When the ants can't follow the pheromones and whiteness is a brand that just causes people to be mindlessly following one another. Mm-hmm. Okay, you know what? I'm circling contradict zone pointer argument. I'm sorry. That last statement, no. No, not after listening to all that. No. No. I say no.
Well, what does that mean?
I don't know. I've been waiting 11 minutes and 46 seconds for you to tell us. What are you talking about?
If you go along with this, I'm asking you what would happen if we all let ourselves off the hook?
Off the hook of what? What?
I'm hoping that what that means.
You're hoping that what that means. You're on the stage. You are giving this presentation. You've spent this entire time asking the audience for affirmation, right? Maybe. I'm hoping. What? Do I push the button? The big, shiny, candy-like button? Can I resist? No, I can't!
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
Good Lord. Oh.
Is that you would act. Not because of your evil racism that caused this. Not because it's your fault for having bad behavior. What if we took credit and blame and guilt? What if we took all of that out of it?
I don't know, Professor. What if? Credit, blame, everything. It's not an accusation, but it's an accusation. I don't know. Thank you. This is Kyle. The Hook. SpongeBob me boy.
What would you do? Well, I'm hoping you would act because babies are beautiful.
What?
And they deserve to live.
What?
And it just takes a little imagination.
What?
Thank you.
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
God, what? Just, oh boy. My patience. I thought we were going somewhere. I think it was at the point at which he gave us the Windows Coca-Cola examples and then basically said, oh, but those are bad examples. I think that's where everything went off the rails. You know, we might have been on the way to something that could have been a reasonable presentation, even if not one that I agree with. But then he just shot himself in the foot and just kept going. Thank you, Lissa Leo. This is for more Pepper Jack. I think you need it after this. Thank you, Lissa. And thank you, John Miller. Wait, this was a pro-life talk? I'm so confused. I don't know. I just don't know. You know, Ohio is 49th in the U.S. in infant mortality. I'm guessing as far as like lifespan of babies. Okay, all right. And he just lets that hang out there. Now, it sounded at the beginning like almost he was going to be attempting to approach the problem of the God of the Gaps theory of statistical analysis. Here is a disparity between two groups, whatever they are, racial demographics, sexual demographics, whatever. Therefore, the difference between these two is explained by one thing: racism, sexism, homophobia, whatever. And he was going to challenge that by saying it's not that simple. It's a lack of imagination. I was like, oh, okay, you're not wrong. But then what then is the explanation that he would put on offer for the infant mortality rate of Ohio? Sorry, the Black infant mortality rate of Ohio. If it's not merit and it's not malice, then what is it? Well, he didn't say. What is whiteness? We don't know. But apparently, white people are just mindless lemmings following each other around and around and around without thinking, doing the exact same thing. And we all get to the same spot because we're all following each other as a group, because we are a monolith. That is why Joe Biden and Donald Trump are exactly the same. They agree on everything. They do the exact same things, point to point, in their entire lives. Right? That's why Ted Bundy and Mother Teresa are exactly the same. They're both white. So obviously they're going to go along with each other towards the same ends. Okay, maybe Mother Teresa was a bad example given her actual history. But anyway. All right, let's go to the bingo card. Let me bring up the bingo card. The bingo card. The bingo card. All right, so I need to shrink it down just a smidge for my own sense of, yeah, that's better. Okay, so where are we on the bingo card? Thank you, the gay rascal. Joe Biden could have given this talk. No. I would not give Joe Biden that much space to maneuver. No, no. This was more coherent than the last 3 speeches I've seen Joe Biden give. I'm not saying it makes any more sense, but it's coherent, relatively. Okay, I know I already hit the WTF button for this talk because it does deserve it as far as I'm concerned, but we're still going to go over it on the off chance we get a bingo, because then I can hit the bingo button as well. Marginalization, marginalize, no. Not that I know of. I'm trying to remember now. My brain might have broken. Collectivize his own demographic? No, he's not talking about himself, so that takes a lot of these out of the running. Feminism? No. Microaggressions, unconscious bias? Well, I mean, there was implication there by all the birds just following the pattern, and also his own demonstration of maybe black people are just ants that can't smell the pheromones. If not for actually having said it, then perhaps for demonstrating it himself, unconscious bias, circling that one. Let me update, make sure I refresh the right page here, not knock myself out of my own show. Anecdote that probably never happened. He didn't bring up any anecdotes, really. And I'm not going to, without any more information, I'm not going to disbelieve that at the time that he gave this talk that Ohio was in that percentile for infant mortality. He talked about windows and Coca-Cola and these things and birds and fish. And yeah, no. Diversity and inclusion. Nah, he never used the words. That really wasn't the point of his talk, so far as I can tell. Attempt to coin new buzzword, buzz phrase. No. He didn't really bring up any crazy new buzzwords or buzz phrases. He didn't say something I like to call or anything like that. Plays victim. He really wasn't talking about himself. Word salad. What was there a word salad in there, guys? You think amongst that cornucopia of WTF there was a word salad? Huh, well, I sure as heck think so.
Bingo.
What? Of course.
Yeah. That if we didn't have a bingo before, we certainly have one now. Okay, moving on from that. Patriarchy. No, he didn't talk about gender at all in this. So, okay. I mean, well, except I guess you could say in the abstract, if we're talking about infant mortality. No, not even then. No, never mind. My brain went off for a second there. I can't imagine why. Wage gap. Well, he talked about wealth at one point. He put up that fake graph about wealth inequity. So I will circle that one. Yes, he wasn't talking. He didn't get on it too much, but he mentioned it. And it's not a bingo square at present, so I'll be fine with that. Systemic institutional. Certainly he was talking about systems. Certainly he was talking about institutions. in his various analogies, if not specifically. So circle in that one as well. Privilege. I mean, it was definitely implied throughout the entire thing. Yeah, I'm going to circle that one too. I mean, in the aggregate, he was talking about all this stuff, and yeah. Childhood to family anecdote, he never talked about himself. Self-vilification or wretchedness, he never talked about himself. Equity. Did he say equity at one point? Oh, I'm trying to think. I thought he did. Did he say equity, guys? I can't be certain at the moment because my brain is a little off, if you can believe it. I thought he said equity. Okay. I don't think he said equity. He said inequality, though. Yeah. Okay. No, I'm not. No, okay. Not circling equity. Make something about race, sex, etc. for no reason. I'm inclined to circle that one on the whole infant mortality rate thing because he never explained why he used that example. What did the infant mortality rate of Black children in Ohio have to do with anything? He was talking about race throughout the entire thing, but he made the infant mortality rate amongst Black children, tried to introduce it, but he never backed it up with anything. I mean, I could put that into the etc. column. Infant mortality in Ohio. Why? Yeah, I'm going to circle that one. Because he closed with that and he opened with that, and yet at no point did he explain why. And lastly, white supremacy. Well, certainly by his rhetoric, whiteness, etc., etc., there was implication beyond and above. And so, again, I'll go for the aggregate there. I'm more than happy to do so in this case because I don't think we're going to get another bingo out of it otherwise. So there you go. That is the bingo card as I have it. If you have arguments for squares that you think should be circled, even though as a WTF entry, this will be all circled. But if there are any individual bingos left to be had, put your arguments in the chat now. Be sure to tag me in your chat statements so I can readily see it's for me. A programming note for those of you that are in real time or relatively on this particular Thursday. Tonight, we'll be going and watching Ranting Monkey on Ranting Monkey's channel at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific for a open format debate he'll be having with one of his Twitter opponents, I guess you could call them. So that'll be starting an hour before Lords of the Night usually begins. Now, if the debate goes longer than an hour and starts eating into Lords of the Night time, well, I am going to attend the fullness of that debate to cheer on Monkey, whether it's an hour, less than an hour, more than an hour. And depending on how long it goes, and also depending on my energy level by the time it's all over with, we'll determine whether or not there'll be Lords of the Night tonight and or when it will begin. So, all that being said, if you are attending anything tonight on this particular Thursday, that's where I'll be for the hour before Lords of the Night and onward. So, play it by ear as we go. Dr. Keeve, Scribelight, circle the whole card. Also, did this surpass Chromosome Lady? No, it didn't. It didn't because she was giving me WTFs all over the place much earlier on. I thought this was going somewhere. I really did. But Chromosome Lady was making no sense and no connection over and over and over and over again. Yeah, I mean, it might be difficult for me to call back exactly, but I think Chromosome Lady is just always going to be top of the heap, king of the hill. She'll be defeated at some point. I don't think this guy had it, though. He led me along long enough that it wasn't until the last 5 minutes or so that it really made me go, what? Let's see. Mr. Yes, what about diversity and inclusion, Scribelight? He never brought up the concepts. He never talked about that. And it's difficult for me to say even in aggregate because he wasn't talking about, he wasn't dwelling on those subjects in any particular way. Racism, sure. Diversity and inclusion, I mean, he did talk about, hold on. He did talk about hiring people. I don't know if that's enough for me to give a bingo. But then again, this is already a WTF. So is it really that much of a crime? Do I really care at this point? I mean, I guess.
Ooh, that's a bingo. Right?
Yeah!
Okay. Point taken. But all right, Mr. Yes. I say yes to Mr. Yes. There you go. So yes, double bingo. We have a plus sign in the card for a double bingo. You're okay now. From this point forward, for the next couple of minutes, you're going to have a very, very steep hill to climb to convince me of any of the others. A very steep hill to climb. BG, Scribble, I think I was trying to convince equity advocates to focus on the problems and not placing blame. I think it was, okay, yes. Build up connections and skills needed for success. Yeah, except that he spent his whole time insinuating a cause and blaming a specific demographic. He wasn't trying to divest anyone of blame. He spent the whole time saying that there was a conspiracy. Oh, there's not really a conspiracy. If he was trying to do that, he did an exceedingly poor job of it. An exceedingly poor job. If he was trying to say that these assumptions about causal links between, statistical disparities are far more complex, he was doing a very poor job in saying simple rules and everybody's following on instinct and nobody's really thinking. It's all just mindless, brainless groupthink. But at the same time, also distinguishing who's following the groupthink and who can't or won't on the basis of racial divisions. So, very poor job. Humble Clay, I'm disappointed in you, Scribelight. Why? What'd I do? I gave in? I gave in, is that it? Oh, well, I hope you can forgive me. I hope you can forgive me. But anywho, everyone, I need to take a mental health break from this because certainly I'm going to need all the energy I can muster to listen to Ranting Monkey tonight and his debate, because I'm sure that will be entertaining of a kind, but probably brain melting of another kind. So just to make sure it's official, yes, we have a whole card circle because this is...
What? What is that? What the fuck is that?
The latest entry into the WTF Hall of Fame for TED Excellence. I'll be adding this to the WTF Hall of Fame playlist, and you can watch all of those in their chronological order, if you please, at your own peril. But with that, everyone, thank you so much for watching today and coming and joining me. Thank you, moderators, for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone's so well behaved, there's not really much to do. Everyone who donated, thank you so much for your generosity. I really do appreciate it. Again, I would usually give the plug for the Lords of the Night tonight, but things might be a little off today. So tonight's plug is Ranting Monkey's channel at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for a live open debate, and I'll be in attendance there. Keep an eye in the chat on that stream, or keep an eye on Twitter for when and if there'll be a Lords of the Night tonight. I have all the materials ready if so. I'm not beyond just calling it if it's going to be giving more support to Monkey in his endeavor tonight. But either way, pay attention to Twitter, follow us on Twitter, join us tonight on Monkey's channel, either way. And with that rambling closure done, everyone, thanks again for joining me. I hope you're all safe and well, if not mentally well at this point. If you're not well, please get well soon, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.